I reported exclusively a couple nights ago that Nick Bonino would be joining Dan Muse's coaching staff at the NHL level. That was confirmed yesterday by none other than, Nick Bonino. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Bonino took to his Facebook page, of all places, not really a norm for a lot of athletes, to share first and foremost with his playing team, the one he'd been playing for and the one for which he'd signed to play again in the coming season in Ljubljana, the capital of Slovenia, to let them know that he was retiring as a player. And from there, he explained further that the reason for that is that he had an NHL opportunity to join the Penguins coaching staff. Because the team has still not announced anything at all, my guess is that because, story broke. Sorry, not sorry, as the cool kids say. He wanted to make sure that the people in Slovenia who had just signed him to a contract knew that all of that was in good faith, that he had no intention of doing this until the situation arose. And of course, this situation didn't arise until well after the NHL's regular season had been done, and his deal with the Slovenian team was in fact completed on April 25. The classy move on his part. We reporters can be really annoying when it comes to stuff like this. But now that he's made it official, now that it's going to become official, maybe the Penguins are going to wait until Muse has his entire staff assembled, reasonable to assume, before making any actual press release out of all this. But I'll say right now, and comfortably so, that this is off to a really good start. I mentioned in an answer to a J1Q on yesterday's show, which is as far as I wanted to take that until somebody somewhere confirmed it, that adding Bonino immediately and most obviously gives Muse someone on his staff who has the bang, instant credibility of I played in the NHL, I played at a high level, and specifically where Bonino's concerned, I played on a championship team with four of your most important guys. And Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, and Brian Rust. Bones won't walk in that room on anything remotely resembling thin ice. And because of that, Muse maybe can feel a little bit more comfortable. I have not been told what Bonino's specific role would be. I would be mortified if it didn't have something to do with penalty killing. This is easily forgotten because of all the Punjab goal shouts and so forth from the 2016 and 2017 championships. But Bonino was always, first and foremost, everywhere he'd been, in the NHL and beyond, a penalty killer. And within that, a centerman, and a face-off guy, and an assignment guy. So he did a little bit of everything and achieved a whole lot. I could see him working with forwards, younger forwards, two-way forwards, grinding forwards, or offensive-type forwards who need to add some of those elements to their game. I could see that being a wonderful fit. In other words, if you don't just look at, well, there's the assistant coach who's responsible for the penalty killing. That was Mike Vellucci's role. Vellucci was, before he got to Pittsburgh, as a head coach in the AHL. He'd been seen for a long time as one of those knocking on the door to NHL head coaching opportunities. Hasn't gotten that yet. Now he's hooked up as an assistant with the Blackhawks. But with Bones, you have someone who can go right to these players and not only handle X's and O's in administration and drills and so forth, but also, and more significantly, given the context of what's about to come here, teach. Teach. Show them how it's done. Show them how you just did it. And when those young players see the legitimate, not just respect, but love that Sid and Gino and Tanger and Rusty all have for this guy, and they do. He was a big, big part of both of those championships and not just his goals. That would, or at least should, help to ingrain that teaching. And I'm going to throw names in here because it makes it feel more real when you do that. If I'm Ville Koivunen and I'm taking lessons, or no, I'm going to skip Koivunen. Let's go with Rutger McGroarty because McGroarty's going to get more time with the PK. He's a PK kid. And McGroarty sees immediately the relationship that's there between Bones and the biggest names around him in that locker room. There's just something extra to that. The other part of this that's good from the Muse perspective, now go ahead and get the brainiac assistant coaches that you probably really want. Go ahead and get those guys. Not that Bones isn't bright, but that's just not why you'd get him. When I say brainiac, I'm talking about from the coaching standpoint. Bones has never coached anything. He, in fact, is going to have to learn a lot about coaching from the rest of the staff and from Muse. So it'll go both ways. I like it. That's my point here today. I like it. When we come back, J1Q. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Today's J1Q comes from Mike. He says, DK, in regard to your Tuesday daily shot of Penguins, you mentioned that goal scoring is the hardest attribute to acquire. I agree. You've also noted many times that as circumstances change, your stances can also change. I agree with that as well. At the time of the Jake Guentzel trade, you very clearly felt it wasn't the best move for the Penguins. At the time, I agreed with that. As circumstances changed, it's also obvious that your outlook on the trade changed over time. So my J1Q for you today is, now that Jake has had the best goal-scoring season of his career, even better than any season he had with Sid, and the Penguins were left with only hope for Ville Koivunen and a third liner in Tommy Novak, was the trade a smart move by Kyle Dubas? This one's tough, man. Way too early in the morning to be coming at me with something this tough. The first thing that I'll say is that I appreciate how observant you are about my own tendencies. I'd never take something like that for granted. I do change stances as circumstances change. I'm not one of those people who just gets hung up on a concept and just pounds it into oblivion, even once it's altered beyond the point of recognizing what your original stance was founded upon. To me, if I was doing that, whatever it is that I'd share with you should come with no value to you because I'm not even being sincere then. So have I softened on the Guentzel trade? Yes. Have I flipped on it? No, that's not happened. Jake's the best left winger Sid ever had. And to see the success that he's had in Tampa, but also really with the Four Nations tournament, just watching Jake, he was the best American forward in that tournament. Don't forget that either. I don't know that I ever thought Jake had that level of hockey in him when he was here. So no, it's not easy to see him playing somewhere other than Pittsburgh. Not even talking about sentimentality here. I'm just talking about from the pure hockey perspective. So to revisit the points that you were bringing up, you were correct and impressively so in making sure to note that Tommy Novak is now a part of that trade because Michael Bunting was originally part of that. Bunting gets sent to Nashville so that Novak can come to Pittsburgh. Novak played, I believe it was just half a game in St. Paul, and then poof, was hurt for the year. I can't speak to his ceiling or even really his role to say he's third line, second line, fourth line. I have no idea. I know that they've cast him, as the Predators have in the past, as a top six fit, but, I don't know that you're going to set out to win a Stanley Cup with Novak on your first or second line. The reason that the Jake trade seems to have come up a little bit of late, including on this program, is that Vasily Ponomarev has left for the KHL, and he's probably gone for good. He signed a 3-year deal over there. He knew he wasn't getting anywhere here, and I didn't really see him getting very far because I really didn't like his skating when he was up late in the season. So that was probably the first real blow, tangible blow, from the Pittsburgh side to the Jake trade. And I'm going to share something with you here that I'm sure some of the listeners today are already shouting back at their devices I'm speaking, but there's more to this trade than Ville Koivunen. Of course, he still looks like the main piece, and Novak now, and Cruz Lucius, a forward prospect who's only 20 years old. He was a fourth-round pick of the Hurricanes. He's been a top player at the University of Wisconsin. The name that nobody mentions is the player who might be, at least in some of our eyes, my arm is going all the way up in the air as I'm speaking, the Penguins' very best prospect. Not Koivunen, not McGroarty, not Sergei Murashov. Talking about Harrison Brunick. Brunick was the Penguins' first pick in last year's NHL draft. Not a first rounder. He was a second rounder, but he was the Penguins' first pick. 44th overall. The Penguins also picked at 46th. But that 44th pick was the one that came from Carolina as part of the trade. If you'll recall, there was a condition on that trade that if the Hurricanes would have made it to the Stanley Cup final, the Penguins would have gotten the Canes' first-round pick. Well, the Canes didn't make it. So the Penguins got their second rounder, and everybody just forgot about it, even after Brunick shows up in Cranberry and just owns the ice for about a month straight. Almost makes the team at age 18. So if any of us, me or you or anybody, wants to continue evaluating this trade, which is never going to be something you can grade fairly in the moment because there's all kinds of future components to it, please, by all means, keep Brunick in it. I appreciate the question. Really good one. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll do another one of these tomorrow.